but it was microspikes the whole time. But the funny thing is I got out of my car and I was solo. There was a guy next to me getting out, and he asked me if I was Mike, and I was like, yeah, I'm Mike. So he said he listened to the show, and he was doing the same route as me, and I was telling him about how I'm going clockwise because I heard about like these post hole stuff. So I was like, do you want to? I was hesitating at first. I was like, yeah, because he said no. Then I was like, if you want to like form an alliance and like join up, we can do that. So. We decided to hike, but I never know what to do with that because I was like, what if our pace isn't the same? And what if I annoy him? And what if he's a serial killer? I don't know.
Oh my goodness.
Broadcasting from the Woodpeckers studio in the great state of New Hampshire. Welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, where we discuss all things related to hiking and search and rescue in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Here are your hosts, Mike and Stump.
Episode 88, Stomp is in the dark, and Lynn has questions on what's going on in the Woodpecker studio.
It's my dungeon. When the lights are off, it looks like a little cave, right? It's a man cave.
Yeah, I have, this place has got like lighting galore where I am. It's just, I couldn't sit in the dark. I would fall asleep. I have like spotlights right over me. I could dim them, but anyway, we'll post a picture in the show notes. But Stomp, I wanted to start the show off. I forgot to do this in the last episode, but I got some follow-up on episode 86, which was when we did the story about the incident of the hiking group in Arkansas. And I don't know, did I mention this before? But the guy reached out to me.
Wait a minute,
This is
the guy that got in trouble?
This is the gentleman that got he got found guilty of collecting money in the national forest. I mean, technically,
Yes.
the way the news headlines called it is he was running an illegal guide service. I think his argument would be he wasn't, but he reached out to me after the show, so he listened to it. And there was a couple of other people that had reached out to me. There was a couple that reached out to me to basically defend him and just say that there's more to the story that we didn't know about, that the news didn't have. And then there was a couple of people that reached out and were like, yeah, this group is an issue or whatever. So I offered the guy, I said, look, if you want to either talk to me just separately and I can add something to the story, or even if you want to come on, I'm happy to do so. But I haven't heard back since. He reached out to me when I was in Florida, and I was like, look, when I'm getting back, I'll reach out to you and we can catch up. And I reached back out and I haven't heard from him. But
well, that'd be an interesting conversation. I mean,
yeah. And I mean, what I said to him over the notes, I said, look, I'm open to whatever. I said, I don't know if anything you could tell me would change my perspective around how the management of the groups were done. I think even more so, less so the day that the gentleman passed away, but the week before, where they had decided to all keep hiking when one of the people was injured, and they left the husband and wife together to figure it out. That was sort of, to me, the one that stood out to me. But I don't know, maybe there's more to the story, but I just thought that was interesting that he listened and they were laughing. One of the people in their Facebook group was like, I think it's really funny that those guys don't know what a bluff is. And I was like, I don't know what a bluff is. We don't use that term except for artist bluff, but it's just a ledge, I guess.
Now we know. I mean, come to find out, artist bluff is exactly what it is. It's a bluff. It's like a mini crag, I guess.
Yeah, it's something you can fall off of.
Exactly. That's for sure.
Anyway, Stomp, another question I had for you that you hopefully can answer. I caught a thread today. Somebody tagged me in a thread about the Fishin' Jimmy Trail, which is the trail that comes up to the Kinsmans. So,
sure, from Lonesome Lake.
Yeah, exactly, from Lonesome Lake. So they tagged me because they were like, somebody asked, like, does anybody know the backstory on Fishin' Jimmy? So I have my handy dandy place names of the White Mountains. So they tagged me, and I have it, literally, this book sits on my desk. And I gave the whole history of the James Witcher guy who it's named after. And everybody was talking about how they hate that trail. And I haven't been on that trail for probably like 5 years.
Yeah.
The Kinsman's I've only done once, which I got to get back up there.
I've done a couple rescues
everybody
on it.
hates Fishin' Jimmy. Do you have any insight on this? What's going on there?
Well, I think two things in particular. First of all, rescues are not fun on that trail, and I can tell you why. There is several ledges that are fairly steep and slick, but there's also these big, larger than usual puds, which, if anybody knows what a pud is, it's a purposeless up and down. So after you leave Lonesome Lake Hut, you end up traversing a bunch of those puds before it starts getting steeper and a little more treacherous. And it's pretty lengthy in general. That's sort of my understanding of it from people I've talked to and just my experience on the trail. Nothing out of the ordinary, though. I mean, there's lots like it, so who knows?
Yeah, well, I'm going to have to go check it out, but that's on my daughter's list for the 4,000 footers, so that will be probably like a springtime or early summer hike for us.
Well, yeah, just to tack onto that, the cannonballs, have you done that, Mike?
I've only done Cannon, the route that me and you went in last October when I did the 4,000 footer and the 52 list finish.
So it's part of Kinsman Ridge Trail essentially, and there's 3 cannonballs, and if you're coming down the south side of Cannon, you can zip right up and over them. But at the top, near the top of Fishin' Jimmy, before you get to the hut, you can tap into the cannonballs there and traverse over towards Cannon. It's a really neat little hike. I mean, you can just do it as a loop from Lonesome Lake Hut, and it's a really nice day. Not too extraordinarily difficult, but it makes for a nice loop above and beyond the AMC hut there.
All right.
Yeah,
I'll
it's neat
check
stuff.
It out. Awesome. Well, I wanted to just start the show off when I was traveling. I got a little bit of time to sort of poke around Reddit, and normally on the White Mountain subreddit, there's usually some interesting stuff on there, but I don't go on too often. Usually like somebody posts and there's like 10 comments and then that's it. There was a thread over the holidays when I was flying. I was reading it. And it was Unpopular Opinions White Mountain version, and this thread had like 400 comments, and there's some pretty good stuff in there. So I wanted to just run through some of the unpopular opinions. People basically saying like these are things that you hear all the time, but I have a contrary view to it. So I thought, Lynn and Stomp, that it would be interesting to run some of these by you and get your reactions. So There's a lot of them, but I think we can go through pretty quickly.
Oh, boy.
Oh, can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
People may have been expecting Ty, but there was a little glitch. So Ty Gagney will be on next week. So just so you know, because I had advertised Ty's presence for this Friday, but next episode. Sorry for the confusion, everybody. But we are so glad to have Lynn here. Lynn is a staple in the community, and she has her hands in everything, essentially. But we'll get to that. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
And can we just say that like the technical issues were not mine this time?
Ha. Yeah, I know. It's like I have a new term for it. It's the curse of Welch Dickey.
Yeah. And it wasn't Ty's fault either, so you do the math.
No, and Ty was so patient. He's a cool dude. Yes. But anyway, we got it worked out.
All right. So Unpopular Opinions. There was a comment that the White Mountains need more wildlife, specifically mountain lions and wolves. So, do we have any thoughts? I feel like I don't think that the habitat is large enough for. I don't think it's large enough for wolves, right? Because they would just kill everything and then starve to death.
I don't know.
I need to know what demographic is asking this.
I don't know. It's just some random people on Reddit, so that's a bad demographic. But Lynn, I will say that there was a mountain lion that was killed in Connecticut. So they're here. People don't want to admit it, but they're definitely around.
That is a huge debate in circles in Connecticut, whether or not there are mountain lions there. And I think I'll reserve my opinion so that we keep the haters at bay.
Yeah, well, I know for a fact that there was a mountain lion that was hit by a car in Connecticut probably about 10, 15 years ago. But anyway, so more wildlife. I don't think mountain lions or wolves are ever going to happen, but that was a request. Now, these next few are around sort of just hiking in general. So the next one is climbing all the 4,000 footers is not that big of a deal in that it's just walking. So, Stomp, I don't know what your thoughts are there. They're basically trying to diminish the accomplishment.
Yeah. It depends on who's saying that, I guess, but I would disagree. The 4K list and that accomplishment is certainly notable and a momentous achievement. And it's certainly not just walking. A sizable percentage of those trails and those particular mountains are ass kickers, to say the least. So, yeah, disagree with that one.
Okay, yeah. And you guys, I know you keep asking me like who's saying this and I want more back. This is trolls on Reddit. So this is all that I got. It's just trolls on Reddit. So here's another one. Most hikes in the whites are completely reasonable to hike with a water bottle and sneakers.
Absolutely not.
Yes, I disagree on that one. You can put the shame drop in there, Stomp, on this one.
Will do.
You had me speechless.
Yes. Here's another one. So I'm sick of everybody fear-mongering when giving advice. So I feel personally attacked by this one, but I think what they're talking about is like sometimes people will ask like pretty basic questions like, you know, I'm hiking Franconia Ridge and, you know, a lot of times you'll get people that are like, they're asking like what direction to go in. And then you'll get a bunch of people on there that'll be like, you better be prepared. The weather can be really bad. And I think sometimes, you know, you want to lead with the answer to the question and then gently put in the cautionary tale. And I think sometimes people lead with the caution first.
I would love to see folks be a little bit more receptive to receiving good advice.
True.
Yeah.
True.
As long as it's not terribly unsolicited. I like when the experts or the more experienced hikers chime in. I think it's good for everybody.
Yeah, agreed. This next one, I think they're talking about Stomp on this one. So influencers are insufferable.
Nice play on that one. I think this one cuts both ways. It depends on the influencer. You know, there are some that are fantastic and then some that are just absolutely insufferable. No question about it.
Yeah. Who do you think is insufferable, Stomp?
I can't say because I'd piss off a lot of people. Sorry, I'm not going there.
I tried, listeners. I tried to get the tea. So, here's another one. If you're complaining about crowds, you're part of the problem.
I love that. That's me. I'm part of the problem. I guess I have to recuse myself from this one because that's how I feel.
Yeah. Well, I think I brought this up the last couple of shows where I've been hiking like Whiteface past Conway and that Sandwich Range area, and I think like the Ferncroft parking lot, like you can go where the crowds are up to Blueberry Ledge, or you can go down to the Kelly Trail and you won't see anybody all day. Go up to Square Ledge, do that whole system of trails. So it's really just stay away from the most popular 4,000 footer hikes and you'll never see anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah. I spent the whole summer in Evans Notch. I didn't see a single person.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can find really empty places pretty easy.
Yep. Yeah, no doubt about it. This next one, 52 with a view list is way better than the 4,000 footer list. I 100% agree on this.
Do you really? Yeah, but
yes.
Is it way better?
Well, it depends on what you're interested in. From my perspective, I feel like it's way better because like you always get a view and there's way less crowds. So that's my criteria.
There's about 3 A's in this spelling of way here and way better. So
they're emphasizing it. So, this next one is the lists need to end. So this person doesn't like lists.
I think they're fine. It's a goal. It's something to go after, hike your own hike.
Yeah. It spreads everybody out. So
yeah. Keeps you motivated.
So
Yeah.
Summer hiking is worse than winter hiking.
I would have to agree, unfortunately. Heat.
I've come to like winter hiking better. Yeah. Yep.
People.
Yeah.
It all comes back to people.
I was filling out my grid list to just see. I was like, let me see where I am. So I'm like 20% done with the grid, but I noticed like my hiking in June, I've only done like 4,000 footers in June. So I think I avoid that like beginning of the summertime because of the bugs and whatnot. So I think I sort of do agree that winter's better from the perspective that you don't have to deal with bugs because that's my least favorite thing to deal with. But I think any hiking's good. I don't care about the season so much.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, here's another one that I'm not happy about. This is going to trigger all of us, so everyone sit down. Hiking in the Whites is way easier than out west. Lots of hikes out west require multi-day ascents, and the person did say they were like, it's way harder logistically out west, but the trails do tend to be harder in the east. So what they're saying is like, if you want to do like a bunch of hikes, like it's a logistical nightmare in the west, whereas in the east you can pretty much drive up and do whatever you want.
Why would you disagree?
Because I'm in the east, so I value like my mountains more than the people in the west.
I mean, the last part of that phrase makes sense. I just don't really have an opinion. I've never really hiked out there. I
would say that there's 2 basic differences for me. One is that out west, sometimes trails are a little bit farther out. So to get onto the John Muir Trail, for instance, you have to take a trail that's between 6 and 15 miles long just to get onto it. And there are tons of switchbacks out west, which you don't really see many switchbacks here in the Whites.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
That is true. So, this is a very specific one. Lynn, maybe you have some perspective on this. The climb from Galehead to South Twin is not that bad, and Garfield Ridge is also not as bad as advertised.
So when I did the Twins, I didn't go across to Galehead. We did Zealand down to all the bonds and then up to the Twins. So we did it in a Y shape, so I didn't traverse to Galehead.
Okay. Well, I did this with Stomp. So we went down from South Twin to Galehead. I've also gone up it. Mm-hmm. And I think, first of all, this is where Stomp sprayed himself with like beer spray and was pretending that it didn't bother him. So he definitely had a tough hike. But I think there's a bunch of rocks that are like, they're not easy to just like step down. You have to kind of jump down or climb up. So it is hard. And the Garfield Ridge was a nightmare when we did it, Stomp. It was like a waterfall that we were getting soaked on. Mm-hmm. So it is. Those are tough trails.
I think this one cuts both ways too. It's like if you're in the middle of a Pemi loop and then you're going counterclockwise and you have to hit that ascent, that's tough. But if you're at, just coming up from like Gale River or whatever, to the hut and then going to Twin but down, it can be actually a nice, enjoyable, but challenging, brief little jaunt, like similar to, Carter Hut up to the top of Carter Dome, that steep ass. Oh, yes. It's awesome. It's steep as hell, but it's like it's over before you know it, Yeah,
that's another one we did. You took me on a blizzard and almost killed me.
Oh man.
Oops.
Good stuff.
Oh, boy. All right. So here's this next one is, so anyway, like I think the only way to judge this is to take the trail yourself. Galehead to South Twin and then Garfield Ridge. Next one is, these people on Reddit are miserable. Parking on the side of the road should be banned.
Huh.
Why do you care? I don't understand.
Well, I mean, a good example would...
But how do you handle it?
Well, like, consider the notch. Like, that's a dangerous situation. I couldn't agree more with this one. Thankfully they put up all the barriers and cones and everything else, and people have to take the trolley to get back and forth now from Cannon, but it was just a safety hazard. If that's what they're referring to, then I totally agree.
Yeah. Here's another one. Mountain forecast is garbage.
I love mountain forecasts.
I do too.
It's just another tool.
What's the problem?
Yeah. You can
Oh,
take what you want out of it, but it's just another tool that's certainly useful.
Yeah, I mean, you run down the list. You do Mount Washington Observatory, Summit, Higher Summit Forecast, Mountain Forecast, NOAA, and then your Apple weather app. And I don't know what Android people do, but I don't know. Here's another one. All Trails is bad.
Agreed.
I've never used it, so I don't know.
You know what annoys me about All Trails? If I'm doing research on a hike, that's the first thing that pops up. And you click on it, and there's like zero information about the thing you're looking for. It happens so often, it drives me crazy.
You paywalled. Do you use All Trails, Lynn?
I don't mind using it. I do. To be honest, I use it to look up trails or to maybe even track. But the problems I find is that it's terribly inaccurate for tracking purposes. Distance, I don't think it takes the hypotenuse of the hike into consideration, so your mileage is off. And for me, as an Apple user, I actually looked into this. All Trails often will shut itself down. I don't know if it's a part of battery saving or whatnot. And so it'll stop me mid-hike, and no matter what I do, I can't get an accurate track. So, I've submitted trails. I've used it before, but I would never rely on it as a sole mapping.
Yeah. We'll later in the show we have we're going to break down. There was an interview with one of the CEOs talking about these apps as well. But I use Gaia. It's been bulletproof for me. I've never had an issue. I don't know anything about All Trails, so I can't speak to that. But this next one is, and I feel personally attacked here. Just because we see each other on trail, it does not mean that I want to talk to you.
Oh, God.
So, I mean, I always say hi to everybody.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Stomp is being antisocial.
Yeah, I am pretty much. I mean, I try to just say good morning or whatever. It depends. It varies. It depends on the hike and the day and whatever mood you're in.
Yeah. We were talking to people on the trail this weekend.
Yeah.
We had these nice three ladies came up, and I did a dad joke. She was like, how you doing? And she said, oh, I'm just happy that I'm here. And I was like, it's always better to be here than over there. But I don't know what over there is. I just said it, and I was like...
Waiting for the punchline.
And I was like, I need to remember that line because I'm going to send that to my kids and tell them I did a dad joke out on the trail, and they were just rolling their eyes. So
that's pretty bad. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Painful.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't make any sense. When I said it, I was like, oh, that's kind of funny.
You must have been hypothermic.
No, I was fine. And the lady was so nice because I'm growing a beard, and she commented that there was icicles dangling off my beard, so I was so proud.
You were actually perspiring?
I guess. I don't know.
Oh, can I tell you one thing about this last weekend? This is anecdotal, but Rusty Talbot, he did the Franconia Ridge Loop, and I think it was Sunday, maybe Saturday, but anyway, long story short, he said he's never seen as many cars and people on the ridge as he did this day. He said he must have passed like 49 plus people up and over the ridge on a midwinter like day with snow and cold conditions. Wow. He was amazed, if not horrified. So isn't that amazing?
Well, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yep.
But anyway, this person does not want anyone talking to them on trail. So I guess grunt and don't make eye contact with this one. The next one is rescue should always be free and handled by paid staff, not volunteers. So they're going after you, Stomp. I mean, I don't think this person has any clue about like how search and rescue works in New Hampshire.
Yeah, I would disagree. I mean, is this thread a national thread or is it local to the whites?
This is White Mountains specifically.
Specific. Yeah, okay. Just wanted to double check.
And we talked about this before. Like the volunteer organizations allow rescue operations to scale when they need to scale. Like there's sometimes when you need to have 40, 50, 60 people out on the ground. You can't have 50 COs available to do a rescue at a drop of a dime like you can with the rescue volunteer infrastructure that they have.
You're waiting for me to expound, and I'm already on the next one. I'm like fascinated by the next one.
All right, so this one again, I'm attacked here. This is another one. Go back to Massachusetts.
I've been reading that line over and over again for the last 2 minutes. Like, oh wow, what a beautiful sentence.
How dare they? You're originally from Mass. The next one, Mount Lafayette would make an amazing ski resort. And then the person also had commented, which I think is interesting, that they made a mistake back when they placed the ski resort at Cannon. They really should have done the ski resort on Moosilauke from Route 112, and that would have been a much better place to put a ski hill. So
interesting. Huh. Better conditions, perhaps?
Yeah, which I think I kind of agree with. Like, Cannon's a little too steep, I think, right?
Cannon's rough.
Would be a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, but, I mean, Moose is a rough place, too. You know, it's the first in the line. It tends to get battered. Out of the several times I've done Moose, at least like 70% of the time, it's been really wild conditions.
Yeah. All right, this next one, I just want to remind the listening audience that what we're going over is what people have written on Reddit. This is not our suggestions. We're reacting to them. So I just want people to remember that. So this next one, no dogs belong in the mountains.
Yeah, I would disagree with that for sure.
Which is bullshit. Yeah.
Total disagree. I need to see dogs on my hikes. There's people that count their dogs that they see. I love it.
Yeah. I saw one happy dog on the hike this last weekend, but I always love to see dogs. So the next one, the AMC workers are great, but the parent organization has turned into a rich person's club. So, and then I've got another one here where somebody else had tagged in and said the AMC should be renamed the Affluent Massachusetts Club. So
I have to recuse myself from this one.
All right. You have any opinion on this, Lynn?
Yeah, let's let Lynn get in trouble.
Put her in.
No, absolutely no opinion on this.
All right, well, I guess I'm going to have to be the one. So I think that if the AMC is nonprofit, I'm assuming they're nonprofit. Maybe they're not. I don't know. I think that the perception that they have high administrative cost and high leadership cost, and that they're sort of in that sort of ivory tower in Boston is not a good look for them. And they may want to consider sort of what the optics of that are like, especially when they're going to be charging significant amount of money for stays in their hut. But I also defend AMC because they're on the front line of a ton of search and rescue activity. You know, they're always helping out, and they also, I think, young people working there, it's a great life experience for them. So it's take the good and take the bad, I guess.
Yeah, anecdotally, I mean, I've seen people complaining about the rates, probably more so than anything else. Nobody would disagree about the assistance that they provide. Yeah. But rates does tend to cross the feed quite a bit. Take it for what it is.
Yeah, exactly. As a matter of fact, I think I was talking about the rates because I was pricing it out, and somebody came at me and was like, you got the wrong rates or something. I was like, I don't know. I apologize then. So if I got the rates wrong, but I do know it can be pricey, but it's also
look at the cost of eggs
convenient.
now. There's a reason for those steep prices.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one, feeding the gray jays is fun.
Oh, totally disagree.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
So I'll go on this one. I'll go.
Okay.
This is such a tough one, but I think it's okay to say that you used to be in a place of not knowing, and now you're in a place of knowing, and so you've changed your behavior. I have fed the gray jays in the past, and as I learned more and more about, leave no trace, and I've really tried hard to encompass everything that, that leave no trace talks about. And one of those things is obviously not to feed the wildlife, because, I don't even think I need to mention the impacts it could have on the ecosystem, because they become reliant on human food. You see that with bear population in totally different ways, but we're teaching them to sort of accept that instant gratification as opposed to going out and hunting and teaching their young how to hunt. So it has a lot of negative implications. So I've done it where I just put my hand out. They come, they land on your hand once or twice, and they fly away once they realize there's no food there. But, you could pick up a small pebble or a stick if you really think you need something. But otherwise, try not to feed them if you can help it.
They're all getting fat.
I know. And I know it's so fun to get the videos, and I do it. I've done it before, but I've learned, and now I don't.
Oh, God. I know. I had two of them on isolation, and I named them. I was like, one of them I named Fathead because it was so big. And it is fun to feed them. And I fed them, and definitely, like, if you scour social media, you'll definitely find some Gray Jay pictures with my hands in them. So guilty.
Evidence.
I'm learning to do better in the future. So.
Jeez.
So anyway, leave no trace. That's what I say.
Right.
The next one here is most people who and I think I agree with this. Most people who carry ice axes in the winter don't have a clue on how to use them.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
I mean, I've definitely talked about, like, I want to get an ice axe to look cool, so I understand.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in search and rescue, that would make sense, because you're having to go off trail and get into weird places that it could really come in handy. But otherwise, for most of the trails that you're on, you really wouldn't need it, even above tree line, if you're doing a list like the 48. Most people don't know how to use them.
Yeah. All right, we're getting to the end of this here. So Pemi Loop should be paved. That's ridiculous. They want to basically build an auto road around the Pemi. Beer bells are useless, which
True.
I agree with.
Yeah.
It's just annoying. I feel like if you're wearing beer bells, it's like the equivalent of a Bluetooth speaker. Owl's Head is great, which I agree with. I think Owl's Head is fine. The slide is not fine, but the Owl's Head itself is fine.
You don't like that?
I think Owl's Head gets a bad rap.
I love Owl's Head. I mean, the slide's wicked cool.
Yeah.
My issue with the slide is that I feel like with the slide, you should have the payoff at the end. Owl's Head, the slide
You get the payoff in
only
the middle.
ends with like way more steep stuff. I was going up there and like, I remember when I went up there last time, like Littlefoot, the little girl was like all the way up the top, and I couldn't even breathe. And she's sitting there like petting a dog, laughing. And I was like, oh my God, I got to step it up here. I'm out of shape.
See, I think
she's incredible.
She is.
The payoff with the slide is that you get the view of Lincoln Slide, and you get that awesome view at that one point, and then you get up to the viewless summit. But just the views from the slide itself are worth going out there, in my opinion. I mean,
yeah. I got to go out there this winter, so I've only ever done it going down the Lincoln Slide. So for me, like, I'm done with views by the time I get to the slide, the Owl's Head slide, because I've already seen them all on the ridge.
Huh. Yeah.
I want to bring a drone to Bond Cliff. I get that. I get that, but it's illegal. Can't do that.
Can't do it.
Can't do it. So that was it, Stomp. So that's a pretty good thread. I'll link that in the show notes. One other thing that came out of that thread that I wanted to give you a heads up on, Stomp, is somebody had talked about, and I don't know how it came up, but somebody was talking about how there's an abandoned trail to Galehead that got wiped out in the 1930s, which brings you to a waterfall, which is called Hitchcock Waterfall.
Okay.
So I figured, like, you may want to do a little bit of research on that. I got a feeling, who knows about this stuff is probably the Teal Goat, because I think he's been bushwhacking around there quite a bit.
Yeah. I'm trying to look up. What's it called again?
Hitchcock Waterfall. And it's a Galehead trail that was wiped out in 1930 during a hurricane.
Hitchcock Waterfall. Okay, I do not see that on my list of lost and abandoned trails. Okay. So, yeah, interesting. Huh.
I'll have to do some digging. All right, so we're moving on here. So Mount Washington Road Race Lottery opens up soon, so we'll include the link in the show notes there. Me and Stomp are both putting in.
Absolutely.
Lynn, are you going to put your name in, yes or no?
Maybe. Can it be a maybe?
She's a maybe, which is good. So we'll find out. And then there is a new fishing game course being offered for women specifically. It is called Become an Outdoor Woman. And I guess anybody, maybe it's open. If Stomp, you want to become an outdoor woman, you can do that.
Let's not go there. Let's not go there.
Yes. Yeah. But it's on Saturday, February 25th, and we'll include the link. And it's going to be at Fishing Games Owlbrook Hunter Education Center in Holderness. And the participants will focus on one outdoor activity during the day-long workshop. So choices include winter hiking, winter survival skills, snowshoeing, wildlife tracking, and shoe and shoot. Sounds pretty cool. So registration opens on January 16th, and you must be 18 years of age, and there's a fee of $85. So it sounds like there's got like 4 or 5 different workshops. Sounds very, very cool.
It does.
This next one here, matter of fact, I haven't looked at this, but 48 Peaks for Alzheimer's has launched their 2023 site. So, Lynn, do you know anything about this?
I might know something. So Alzheimer's Association this year again is doing the 48 Peaks for the longest day hikes, and registration is open now on the website. It's alz.org/48 peaks, and you can get registered starting now. Join a team or create your own adventure or team. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Do they have like a goal yet on what they want to do for fundraising? Or are they just... Our goal
this year is $250,000. Wow. So okay. Just a little higher than what we did last year, which was just over $238,000 was our grand total.
Okay. Very good. I got a feeling you're going to smash that.
Probably. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I've had correspondence with some of the folks, and the question is, Mike, do we want a SLASR team this year to participate?
Yeah, we probably should.
Yeah, we could.
Do I have to do any work related to that?
No, you just got to walk.
If I can just hike and show up, I'll do it.
It's just like walking.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can put a poll up and see if people are interested in us doing that.
Yeah.
And then, Stomp, you have something here, hiker celebration party at Reckless on June 10th?
Oh, that is for...
Do you know what that is?
Wait a minute.
That's for the Alzheimer's 48 Peaks event.
Yeah, that's a little something there. So June 10th at Reckless, it's going to be a celebration for the event, and it ties into what we just talked about.
Right. Many of the 48 Peaks hikes will occur on that day, but they don't have to. So we're coordinating with the 10th, where most of the hikes will be.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it will be in the Pint House, from what I understand.
Okay.
I believe so. Out back in the area where you do your live taping, if I'm not mistaken, back there.
Yeah. It's a cool spot.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And then speaking of Reckless, congratulations to the Fantasy Pants podcast. Steve from Reckless is involved in that. Stomp has been on there. They are killing it. They reached their goal of 1,000 listens. So congratulations to them. Hard work has been paying off. Dungeons & Dragons is very niche-y, but it's very good that they're getting some traction.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're doing a really nice job. Congrats.
Awesome. All right. So a couple of stories here, Stomp. I think I'm going to skip these first two and then get right to this. There's a 50,000-year comet coming soon. It's 230 feet wide. And are we all going to die?
No. We won't die, but we will see it pretty prominently. And as it passes, it's just more or less just the ice and everything else that creates a hell of a tail to observe. So the dates are pretty soon. Yeah, I believe it's 21st to 22nd is a great time to look at it because the full moon is coming after that. So just be aware of that. But keep a lookout. We'll put the link up and you can check it out.
It's not good. Not good.
50,000-year comet.
You know, Game of Thrones, when the comet showed up, that's when the dragons were born and all the White Walkers showed up. It was a disaster. This is not good.
Oh my goodness.
Disaster.
Oh man.
Nothing good happened.
Oh, you know what?
So.
Well, technically, this is Friday the 13th, technically.
Oh,
great.
Jeez. I was just going to add in here, that could be a really cool buddy hike. A nighttime hike up to like Welch Dickey Overlook or Artist Bluff or whatever to see this thing. That might be sort of cool to do.
Oh, God, I don't know.
You got too much going on.
Well, I mean, out in the woods during the comet, that's when the White Walkers came for the Game of Thrones the first time. It's not a good idea.
All right.
Let somebody else be the guinea pig.
All right. Well, speaking of buddy hikes, when this show comes out, we will be hitting Pierce the next day on Saturday. So, want to tell us a little bit about this, Mike?
Oh my God! Speaking about
Your
another
baby.
disaster, here we go.
Your baby monster.
Yeah, my baby monster. No, I think we're ready to go. We are so organized. So yeah, we're doing the buddy hike on Saturday morning. We have people are going to get pissed at this. Like, we're probably going to get a lot of people saying like we shouldn't be doing this, but we have 30 people. But it's not all. We're not all going at the same time. We're spreading it out so that we're going to be there at different times over the course of the day. So
and the weather
over
looks
the course
mint.
of the morning. But yeah, well, the weather looks good.
Oh yeah, weather looks absolutely fantastic because the storm that was forecast has moved forward towards us. So we're getting it now. A little bit of rain tomorrow, Friday, which should compact some of that new snow. But yeah, Saturday is like a high of 28. So a little cool, but partly cloudy.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I think it's going to be crusty snow and stuff, but
Yeah.
everyone has snowshoes. I laid down the law. I talked about parking to everybody. I clarified the meeting place. I told them about the weather. So there's probably half the people are like new winter hikers.
Yeah.
I told them about the weather. I was like, we're keeping an eye on things that, Thursday, Friday is going to be sketchy. I said it may be rainy or whatever. We'll keep an eye on it, but we're going, so we'll be there. I said, from gear perspective, make sure you've got micro spikes, snowshoes, good boots. You've got gaiters, a base layer. Talked about like a fleece, a down jacket, shell, multiple pairs of gloves, water, the whole thing with decent sized pack. And then we also have extra snowshoes. Not everybody has snowshoes, so we'll bring an extra for people. So everyone's going to have snowshoes. And then we're going to start as a group, stay together. We're going to have, each group is going to have a lead, a sweep, and then we're also going to have a person that's basically dedicated. Like if somebody's really struggling or they're not feeling it or whatever, we'll have
somebody can head down.
We have 3 experienced hikers in each group, and we're basically one person will be the ripcord. If somebody says like, "Hey, I'm not feeling it," that we'll turn that person around and have them go down with the experienced hiker, and slowly go down there so that we can keep going. So we've got everything ready for contingencies.
What am I doing?
You're like, you're like probably going to be a sweep. You're going to be babysitting Shandy, I think, is what you're going to be doing.
Wait a minute. No, she's the babysitter.
Yes.
I'm not a babysitter.
Well,
She's got a business
we'll see.
babysitting.
That's true.
You can
That's true.
babysit me, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So 7:30 at the Trailhead Stomp.
Oh my God.
Make sure you're there.
7:30.
Hey, she's got her EMS now, so
Yeah, that's super cool. Congrats. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I haven't figured out is, I never hike with people, so I'm always solo. So if nature calls, I just do my thing. But like, we're gonna have a bunch of people. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do if nature calls.
That sounds like a you problem.
Well, Mike, since
There's gonna be a lot of ladies in my group. Like, it's gonna be awkward.
Oh yeah, you better work that out.
yeah, but leave no trace.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's true. That's true.
200 feet.
Yes, 200. Well, I don't. Hopefully, that won't be a problem. But it's the other kind that I'm worried about. But anyway, we'll see how it goes. We're going to go to Reckless afterwards, and I think ultimately, like, my advice to people, if you want to learn to winter hike, I think going with a guide service, Northeast Mountaineering, Redline Guides, amazing. If you can afford it, that's the way to go. This is probably, if you can't find a personal friend that knows what they're doing, then I think these groups seem to be a good way to do it. I'm no expert. I'm not a guide. I don't know everything. I probably know 5% of what these guide services know, but I would definitely check out those guide services if you want to learn and you don't have any resources. But hopefully we'll get people that are interested in learning more, and this is a good exposure to them.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, Stomp, coffee donations, anything good?
Yeah, we have Laura Eli donated 3 coffees. Thank you, Laura. And Fred donated 5. And they just gave us compliments as to the show. And if I remember correctly, I didn't take a note on one of them, but I think one of them was, when I'm hiking, I'm listening. And, when I'm driving, I'm listening. So it's really pretty cool. I think we're almost at the 150K point for downloads, which is pretty neat. So it's super appreciated that everybody's hanging in there with us and listening.
And then you have are we doing notable hikes now? Or are we doing that after I do the intro?
Yeah, we just have one. Yeah. So Nick hikes and plays guitar, tagged us. And if you want to be considered for the SLASR notable hike, just tag us on your post on Instagram and we will mention you. And generally Mike picks his favorite of the bunch, but this time we only have one, so that's an easy pick. But Nick tackled North and South Twin and had some really beautiful pictures and talked about his dad. I'm assuming based upon the post that his dad had done the hike as well, but nice work, Nick, and thank you for listening.
Okay, well, welcome to episode 88 of the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast. This week, we're highlighting a couple of recent hikes, including hikes on Middle and South Carter and a bushwhack that Stomp did to Flume Peak. We also want to welcome back, Lynn. You were on the show before, right? You were on the show when Reckless, right?
Briefly, when you did your live taping, yeah.
Got it. So we're going to welcome you back. So welcoming back our friend Lynn Swezey, who is an outdoor leader, photographer, and all-around creative person who is an avid hiker and backpacker. So Lynn will join us to talk a little bit about some of her recent exploits and hikes, and then we'll ask her some questions about her volunteer work with the Alzheimer's Association. She's already given us some info on that. So, and then later in the show, we'll discuss a recent interview that happened with a CEO from Fish and Game that was a participant in a number of the recent fatality rescues around Franconia Ridge. So we'll break down a little bit of details about his perspective on safety in the White Mountains. So I'm Mike.
And I'm Stomp, and I'm wondering if you mispronounced her last name.
Did I say Swezey or Sweezer?
You did it right. My actual last name is Swezey, and my moniker is Sweezer Outdoors. Yeah.
Oh, got it. Tricky stuff.
I think when I sent you that letter that I did Sweezer, and then I realized, I was like, wait, it's Swezey, but that makes sense on why I would have made that mistake, because I wouldn't have made that mistake on my own. That was your fault.
I'll let it pass. Either are acceptable.
Very good.
That's awesome. Hey, before we get rolling, we have a sponsor to announce. CS Instant Coffee. Zero waste instant coffee that comes in compostable packets. perfect for the trail and home. Check them out by going to www.csinstant.coffee. Awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be using some hot coffee when I'm hiking in the cold weather this weekend.
Yeah, it's a good idea, actually. Did you tell folks about that?
Yeah, I always
bringing hot liquids.
I did. I told people to bring hot liquid, to bring a thermos. Don't worry about the weight. You'll enjoy it when you get up there in the cold.
Good.
All right. Any beer, Stomp? Anything you're drinking?
Yeah, I am enjoying an orbital elevator from one of my top faves here, the Burlington Beer Company. It's a double IPA. Delicious. And you?
I'm just drinking water. Haven't gone shopping since we got back from the new year. Haven't gotten any beer, so just water.
I got it.
Anything for you, Lynn?
As I am nearing 7 years sober from alcohol, I am drinking hot cocoa tonight.
Oh, very nice.
There you go.
Very good. So it's one beer out of the three of us. So
Yep.
It is what it is. I'll be back on the beer train next week, I think.
The beer train.
Yes. So recent hike, Stomp. You want to talk about so you did some weird bushwhack off of Greeley Pond. Is that what you did?
It is it's like I talked to you a little bit about how I wanted to get out to do Mount Kangamangas, which is east of Greeley Ponds, and it's a 3,763-foot peak that's on the 500 highest list. And my plan was to do some recon, and it's pretty simple, but I scaled it back because it had just snowed and it was looking pretty damp. So I decided to do some additional recon a little further south for this beautiful, it's like I've seen it so many times, just sort of nestled in between Scour, the Scour, the cliff off of Livermore Road. And it looked awesome, and it's called Flume Peak, and it's a bushwhack. It's not on any list, but it's just super cool. So essentially I went up Livermore Road out of Waterville, and that whole trail system is so different now. It's like you have Kettle's Path, you have Irene's Path, and all this and that. Essentially you're taking the trail that's after the Big Pines and coming up to the Scour, and then you're descending maybe 100, 200 feet into this area called the Flume, which is a really neat sort of gorge-like area with these massive boulders. Funny, Steve Smith was just up there actually a couple of days after I was up there, and had posted some of the areas that I had seen. And then from there, it's just like a 400 or 500 foot ascent to Flume Peak. So it's a neat area. If you continue on with that trail after the Scour, by the way, it connects out to, the Scour. Yeah, it leads out to the trails that lead up to the Scour Peak and the Tri-Pyramids. So it's a really neat, underused area if anybody's interested in exploring some new terrain.
I'm looking at the map right now. It looks like a really steep cliff section to the west, but approachable from the east, you said?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like open woods. Yeah. If you take the trail continues, as I'd mentioned, away from the Scour towards Scour Peak and the Tri-Pyramids. And off of that trail, you can just dive off anywhere and get up to Flume Peak pretty easy. Yeah, it's a nice area. But Mount Kangamangas, that's the next, it has my attention. So I'm going to tackle it from the south.
Very good. Well, I was up on, I'm working on the winter 4,000 footer list, so I was up on Middle and South Carter. Luckily, I got some intel on the night before. The Teal Goat had gone up, done that. He had done it counterclockwise, had given me some intel about, the fact that there wasn't any snow really, and he had said that it was Post Hole City coming down like North Carter and Imp. So I decided to go clockwise and go up the Imp Trail and then up North Carter, and it was as advertised. It was just like Post Hole, but it was microspikes the whole time. But the funny thing is I got out of my car and I was solo. There was a guy next to me getting out, and he asked me if I was Mike, and I was like, yeah, I'm Mike. So he said he listened to the show, and he was doing the same route as me, and I was telling him about how I'm going clockwise because I heard about like these post hole stuff. So I was like, do you want to? I was hesitating at first. I was like, yeah, because he said no. Then I was like, if you want to like form an alliance and like join up, we can do that. So. We decided to hike, but I never know what to do with that because I was like, what if our pace isn't the same? And what if I annoy him? And what if he's a serial killer? I don't know.
Oh my goodness.
I got to tell you, it's like you can take a chance. I mean, like I think about me meeting Nobby that time when I was going to do the Pemi Loop, and he's become a great friend for all of us. He's such a cool guy. But yeah, I mean, I guess there's a chance it could have gone really bad.
Yeah. Oh, I figured I was like, my thought was that like, we're going to go into the Camp Dodge. So you cut through Camp Dodge, which I apologize. I think in the summer they tell you not to do that, but in the winter, I guess it's okay. But anyway, we cut through Camp Dodge, and I was like, if he's going to kill me, this is where it's going to be. Right. So we made it through there, and then I realized that, the pace was fine and the conversation was great, and it turned out exactly like you. I think I found my Nobby. So Hiker Steve, you're my new hiker buddy. So, but it was perfect because he was talking about how he's doing the winter 4,000 footer, and we have a bunch of like peaks that we need to get. So I got his number with texting. I sent them some pictures. We're buddies. It's great. I took a chance.
Cute.
Wow. Yeah, it's super cool.
I did get the sense from talking to him that he liked you a little bit better than me, though. So I wasn't thrilled about that.
Uh-oh. Buddy competition.
I was a little bit jealous. But anyway, the Carters are fun. It was some sketchy sections. Like there's like a little wall going up Middle Carter that took us. It was like a little bit of a puzzle we were trying to figure out. We had to dive into the woods a couple of sections, but overall it's a pretty straightforward hike. We saw maybe 3 or 4 other groups.
Awesome.
So, you know who I think we saw?
Who?
Lynn, matter of fact, you would know. The Notch Hostel, their dog.
Delilah.
I'm pretty sure we saw, is it
Serena Ryan. Yeah, she's the owner. She's fantastic.
I didn't call it out, but Steve had, after they passed, he was like, I'm pretty sure that's the dog from the Notch Hostel. So I missed a celebrity.
Actually, well, I know that the video won't do much for the listeners, but I happen to have the sticker of Delilah the Notch Hostel dog.
Oh, you have a sticker?
Yeah.
Delilah the Notch
That's funny.
dog. Yeah. So she's got her own sticker. She's adorable.
Yeah. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that we did see them. We saw we saw that other group where I did the dad joke, and there was another guy going up to Mount Height, which I was going to do, and then I was feeling a little tired, so I decided to bail on Height. But that's a great hike.
I've had communication with both of them over the last few months, and we definitely plan on getting them on. And if Serena and Phil are listening, Philip Garcia, we'll definitely have you on soon. She was sort of backed up and whatever. Hang tight. Hopefully we'll get you.
That's going to be a good show.
Very good.
Yeah, we've been getting hit up by so many people. Actually, this is the first time since probably the start of the show where we've had 6 or 7 weeks of topics ahead of time. Like, it's getting busy.
Great.
It's wild.
Good stuff.
All right, Lynn. So any recent hikes you want to highlight, Lynn, I know you've been out. You went to Mariah, I know that, but anything else?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did Mariah with Team Littlefoot, and that was just the most amazing hiking experience. One of the most amazing I've ever had to watch her hike, her tenacity and how meticulous she is. It's just incredible. So I got to hike with that team. And also I did Wambeck a couple weeks ago. That was with Eric, Todd Sweet, and Shandy. Pete Warren was with us. And so we enjoyed that hike. I was with Cindy also from the Alzheimer's Association. She and I spent the weekend at the Notch and did a few different hikes. Saw Phil Karsh's talk, his fireside chat. That was incredible. yeah, so it was a great weekend.
It's time for SLASR's Guest of the Week. Very cool. Very cool. Very, 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 very cool.
All right. Vaucluse gear. Back sweat sucks in all types of weather and hikes. Not only is it uncomfortable, sweat is a risk factor causing your core temperature to fluctuate if it doesn't evaporate off your back. And Mike knows about sweaty backs. Check out Vaucluse's Cool Dry Backpack Airflow Frame. A backpack, I'm sorry, I had to add that in, Mike. Check out Vaucluse's Cool Dry Backpack Airflow Frame, a backpack accessory that installs in your favorite pack, size 18 liter to 65 liter, and creates an airflow gap between you and your pack. Whether you're in hot or cold temps, even if you have a pack with a curved frame, the Cool Dry frame is a real game changer when it comes to airflow. So visit vauclusegear.com, that's VAUCLUSE gear.com to order a Cool Dry frame today. And Lynn's also like a tried and true with the Vaucluse gear. You really enjoyed it, right, Lynn?
I definitely did. I received the frame a couple of weeks ago, or just before the holidays, I suppose. And
Yeah.
I've taken it out on, 3 or 4 good hikes now. I did Monadnock with it, Mariah, Wambeck, and Flume Gorge. And I have to say, I guess just out of habit, you kind of reach back with your arms to sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, to air out your back a little bit. And so in doing that, I noticed there was nothing there to air out. I wasn't sweating. There was a cool breeze on my back, but it never got to the point of, sweating and then causing moisture to sit there. So I absolutely loved it. Yeah.
That's great.
So why don't you introduce yourself, talk a little bit about how you've gotten into hiking and backpacking and anything else you think might be of interest.
Sure. So I guess you know that my name is Lynn, and I live in Connecticut. I live just outside of Hartford. More or less, I've been hiking my entire life. If you know Connecticut, I grew up right next to Sleeping Giant. So it's a small local mountain, and looking at it from the side, it looks like a giant who is sleeping. So it's pretty neat. Those are my home trails. And then a few years ago, I took a deep dive. I had a friend of a friend who was hiking the Appalachian Trail in a through hike. And I said, geez, what are the chances that she would adopt me onto her hike? And I just threw out the question. I said, could I come for 10 days? Wherever you are, I'll come to you. Just give me an idea of what I need to do. And mind you, I had never been overnight backpacking in my life. I'd only done day hikes up until then. So I did just that. She said, absolutely, come on down. And it just so happened that she was entering the area of Virginia, which is known as the Triple Crown of Virginia. And it includes McAfee Knob, Dragon's Tooth, and Tinker Cliffs. You can do it a few different ways. We looped it from a hostel, from Four Pines Hostel. And so the loop took, I think, two days. You could do it in a day. But so we did 10 days north. And the way we did it was drive the car north and then shuttle south to your beginning point and then hike to the car. So, yeah, that was my first introduction. I got, what do they call it? Not trial by fire, induction by fire, something like that. And all the thru hikers kind of gave me a shakedown, and they ripped about half of my pack apart and said, get rid of the 50% of this right now, because you're going to die in a day if you try to carry all this. You don't need 4 compasses, things like that. So I think I got a pretty good immersion education into backpacking in that time. Absolutely loved it. And along the way, we met a third hiker, Stealth, who I'm still very close with. And the three of us girls carried on a 10-day hike. It was wonderful. And then they continued after I left. So
10-day hike.
Yeah, I figured why not just give it a whole go and really experience it. So I learned quite a lot of things, and immediately did a lot of things differently when I came home and did some more backpacking.
Awesome. And then do you have, like in the White specifically, do you have certain hikes that are your favorites? Do you go after certain lists? Do you have any backpacking trips that you've done specifically in the Whites that you highlight?
Yeah, I really enjoyed Presidential Traverse that I did. In the same way, that was the first time I had hiked really in the White, so 4,000 footers, was to complete a traverse from Webster to Pinkham Notch. So that was just over 2 days. We overnighted at Madison Spring Hut and ended at Joe Dodge. So that I really loved. I prefer longer treks. I prefer to be able to backpack my way over 2, 3, or 4 days. So I enjoyed that. I think I mentioned before, my friend Haley and I, we did a Zealand, Bonds, and Twins traverse. So we added the Twins onto the typical Z-Bonds. That was about just over 20 miles, I would say, 5,000 feet of gain and 4,000 footers in there, along with Guyot. It's I don't know what's the right pronunciation. I
think it's Gio.
Yeah, so
Stomp says Gio. We'll go with that.
So I went to high school with someone with the last name Guyot, and it was spelled that way. So, but I'll go with the French pronunciation of Gio for our purposes.
Guyot. Guyot.
Now, do you know in general, like if people come to the Whites from Connecticut, is it because it's such it's a longer investment in the amount of time that you have to drive? Does that just tend to force you to just do more backpacking or overnight stuff?
I think for me it did and does, because to get to Lincoln Center, it is a 4-hour drive. So, it can be tough. I think only one time have I actually done it in a single day, and I would probably never do that again. The drive home was pretty bad. I was sleepy, so I had to keep pulling over pretty often. I think it took at least 6 hours, but anywho, I do think that is part of the reason for doing the little bit longer hikes, just the distance. And lucky for me, I have some really good friends up there that allow me lodging and take me out to eat, things like that. So pretty lucky. Yeah.
Awesome. So you had a pretty good shakedown through the thru hikers, so that's a big benefit when you started backpacking. But can you talk about, like, what was, besides the 4 compasses that you brought with you, what mistakes did you make early on when you started getting into this, and what issues have you had on the trail in the past?
Some of the mistakes I made, I more or less knew not to wear cotton, and that might have been one of the only things I really knew. I absolutely carried way too much food. If there was a way for me to estimate a little better, I would have. But what happens to me traditionally on a multiple day hike is I don't eat right away. I can't eat. I eat very light. And then the hiker hunger, depending how long you're out for, maybe hiker hunger comes in a few days, maybe it doesn't. But I found that I eat a lot less than what I traditionally pack, but I always pack for more than what I think I'm going to be doing anyways. So I guess it was just an overall thinning out of everything. I had 2 or more of a lot of things that I just didn't need. A couple extra whistles when I had the whistle on my pack. The first aid kit was just huge. Like, there was no need for a handful of Band-Aids if you have duct tape. So just little things like that. And then all the tricks, like wrapping your poles with a little bit of duct tape to have some on you. Just small little things that you wouldn't think to do unless you'd been around through hikers who've done it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That makes sense. And then have you ever had any scenarios where you're like, I think I may have to call search and rescue?
Oh boy. I did have a situation in the Whites last year. It's I was talking about it on Facebook today with Mike Maciel, and we were talking about the bog south of Mitzvah Hut. And so when I was in the I was in the middle of my presidential traverse, and my foot went into that bog. We had been warned about it. The Sobos, they warned us, here's where it is. This is where you'll fall. Do not step there. And because I'm a photographer, I had my camera in hand. I just wanted a picture of the bog. I just wanted a video of the footbridge. I really love footbridges. And just as my hiking buddy is saying, watch out for the bog, I'm saying, I'm not going to fall in. And in that moment, phone in hand, I fell into the mud bog with my entire leg all the way up to my hip. Couldn't get out on my own. It was. That's
deep.
It was really scary. If I didn't have a person with me, I'm not sure exactly how I would have gotten out, because the ground all around me was fairly soft. Maybe my trekking pole, I could have caught on to something, but it took a lot of effort for him to keep his feet on solid ground and reach out, pull me up with his hand, get me out of the mud. And it just so happens that since I was recording, I handed off the phone to him in about the snarkiest voice I've ever heard myself use. And so it just kept recording, and we have most of it on video. So yeah, that was a close call. I didn't get hurt. Everything was fine. And, we cleaned up and carried on and told the story at Mitzvah Hut that day. But yeah.
We'll add that video to the show notes.
I do. I have it on my YouTube. I'll give you the link.
Yeah, let me know. And then, in fact, something similar happened to me. Like when me and my friend Tom we did a hike in Grafton Notch, and we got up over the Mahoosic Arm, and it was like raining. It was like a tough hike. And before you get to Speck Pond, it's like a flat boggy section, and there's some of those bog bridges. I think that's where it is. And I stepped in, same thing, went all the way up to my hip. I thought I was just like, I'll just, I'll take one extra step before I actually step on the bog bridge, and I went in. Like it's kind of shocking. It was
a strange feeling when there's nothing below your foot. So I think my pack had kind of stopped me from going further in, and with nothing under your foot to sort of grab onto, it was a really odd feeling. So that's actually how I got my trail name from that little debacle.
And
what's the trail name?
Is that? Hint, hint. She just set us up.
Muddy Hip?
We had to ask.
Yes. I can't believe you'd ask that. The trail name is Buttercup, from The Princess Bride.
Oh, that's great.
Okay.
So if...
Very
inconceivable.
Nice. Yeah, if you know this scene. Yeah. She gets pulled out of the quicksand, and it was a lot like that.
Great movie.
Yeah, I know. There was a meme going around like last year where it was like, I thought quicksand, when I was a little kid, I thought quicksand would be a much bigger part of my adulthood, because, every TV show in the 70s, like Gilligan's Island, every episode had someone falling into quicksand. So anyway, all right, well, that's a good one. So you didn't need search and rescue, but you came close. What about, so you're pretty well networked, and I get the vibe that you're a social person. Can you talk a little bit about, from your perspective, what are some ways that you went about sort of meeting people, getting involved in the hiking community, and then sort of your perspective, if maybe you're someone that's an introvert, what would be your advice for people to sort of start networking and making some connections? Sure.
One of the first ways I made friends in New Hampshire was the Hiking Buddies page, so I jumped on a couple of hikes there. There were some folks from Connecticut that I knew on that group as well. So just networking within friends to start, friends brought friends on the hikes, and subsequently I have an entire entourage of people in New Hampshire that I love to hike with. I would say, if you're an introvert, get a friend who's an extrovert who will pull you out and do these things, honestly, is the best advice I can give. Because if you're not really willing to just do it on your own, just find a friend that you trust. Say, can you help me? I really want to do this, but I need a one buddy. I need to have a partner in doing this. So I would say look out for your introverted friends and try to help them into these settings.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And the thing too is the hiking community is actually pretty small. Once you start to get to know people, you're like, oh, it's the same people over and over again. So
2.5 million visitors a year.
Yeah.
Is that Frank?
And it's the same, like
not that small.
The same 200 people on Facebook over and over again.
Yeah.
Anyway, what about hiking goals? Do you have any hiking goals? Like, are you working on any list? Do you have any like world travels planned, or what's your bucket list right now?
I definitely have a hiking bucket list. It does include finishing the 48, although I'll say, while it's a priority, I'm a little bit far away from it. So I don't mind if I have to take my time doing it. It's a long-term goal for me. In the next few years, maybe call it by the time I'm 50, and in the next 10 years, I would like to hike the PCT. I'd like to do a through hike out there. Maybe eventually the AT, but I've sectioned out quite a lot of it from Port Clinton, PA north. So I would like the experience of seeing the PCT. And, to get ready for that, I'd like to just do some more smaller through hikes, like maybe the Long Trail or, Metacomet, Monadnock, Sunapee, something like that, just to kind of get some more ideas going. A little more experience.
Maybe we can set you up with Cheswick.
Heck yeah.
He'll give you some pointers.
I'll take them.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, can you talk a little bit about your work? So you are, you do marketing, and you're involved in, a couple of outdoor organizations, both from volunteer perspective. But can you talk maybe a little bit about your work, and then maybe some interesting trends that you see in the outdoor industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've recently transitioned from an entire career in sales and marketing over to becoming a freelance artist and writer. I do anything from administering a couple different businesses on the back end to SEO optimized blog writing. I also do some graphic design, photography, and most anything related to brand promotion or social media promotion. Whether it's creating the content, creating the writing. I like project management. I have an affinity to coordinating and organizing. So yeah, right now I'm enjoying the clients that I have and hoping to gain a few more and really build this out into a business that I can take with me remotely wherever I go and, hopefully carry me through the rest of my life. Awesome.
And then you are, you do a lot of photography, you do a lot of video work. Do you have a pretty active YouTube channel at this point, or is it just more of a hobby for you?
I would say I have a YouTube channel. I wouldn't say it's exactly active, although I try my best to upload things that are, mildly funny and maybe educational sometimes, but mostly I'm just having fun. The ideas come to me randomly or experientially based. So I've tried to turn something that's just been a passion of mine for a long time, which is documenting and telling stories, and turn that into something a little bit more professional and adapt to the needs of, the changing markets.
Got it. And then can you talk a little bit about your gear? Can you talk about what for backpacking, what do you use for a pack, a tent, your sleep system, footwear, clothes? We want to know the details.
Ooh, the fun stuff. Okay. All right.
Yes.
This is my jam here. Let's see. So for a tent, I typically use a Big Agnes Tiger Wool UL2 bike packer tent. The bike packer part was sort of a future thinking that I might eventually take a ride and do some backpacking, which still could happen. So right now that's Big Agnes. My primary sleeping bag is a Nemo Riff 30-degree bag. And if I need to get colder, I'll just use a liner bag. Or, I have a sleep system of layers, so I can add or remove a layer or two if I need to. Let's see, footwear, pretty much an ultra Lone Peak hiker for the most part. I do use Zero boots, Zero with an X. And I'll say about that, I recently had what I think is a waterproofing failure, and their customer service was remarkably good. So I'm actually expecting my new pair of boots next week. It was just a full replacement, and they'll take mine back and see if they're suitable for donation. So, that's pretty much what I stick to for a pack. My favorite pack is my Osprey Kite 46. And that was my original backpack. It'll probably always be with me. I'll never get rid of that pack. It's so perfect for me. And for longer hikes, like I did part of the John Muir Trail last year, I used a Granite Gear Blaze 60-liter pack. So out there, you mandated to carry a bear canister. It can't be an Ursack. It can't be, it's got to be an approved canister. So the Granite Gear pack was really good about being able to store the canister just below the brain and right on top of your pack. And I stored that empty and then packed in the food. So for a larger pack, I like the Granite Gear. And then anything smaller, I have I think a 40-liter REI Trail Series and an 18-liter Osprey, just like a day hike pack.
Nice. Okay. And then with your tent, so you use a 2-person tent for yourself. Do you have any thought? Like I had kind of gone back and forth when I bought mine. So I have a quarter dome 1-person tent, and my perspective was I'm typically only doing like weekend overnights, maybe max. And I'm like, I don't really need the extra room to put my stuff in. I can just sort of manage it by putting it into the, I forget what that's called.
Vestibule, yeah.
But vestibule, that's it. So do you have an opinion between getting a 2-person tent versus a 1-person tent? I was just going totally like I want to go as light as I can.
I will say that for the difference in weight, I mean, you might be, I'm not quoting the website or anything, but I can't imagine that it's more than a half a pound of weight savings between the 1 and the 2. For me personally, I like to have a little bit of room once I'm in my tent. So, to kind of spread out, I've got 3 or 4 different stuff sacks that I use, my hygiene kit, things like that. So I like that I have the room to spread out. Do I need it? Absolutely not. If I wanted to shave weight, I would go with a 1-person. But, also I had in mind that I might bring a buddy with me, and that buddy might not have gear. So I'm able to put a 2nd person in my tent, and I also have a couple of hammocks I can take with me if I want a hammock.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of hammocks now. It's definitely heavier than a tent, the way I'm doing it anyway. But for comfort, I'm a huge hammock fan. But I'm also not doing a week or 2 weeks at a time. My perspective would be different if I was doing longer trips. So,
do you use an underquilt on your hammock?
I have. I just got one, probably like a fall. It's good, probably down to about 30 degrees, and then after that, it's, I would probably need something heavier. But yeah, I just started doing the underquilts. It's a little tricky because you do need to get full coverage underneath you, and setting it up, like it takes some practice, and I'm not perfect at it at this point. But that's the other thing about a tent is that it's very quick. Like for me, I can get my tent up in like 2 seconds versus the hammock is a lot of fiddling with the underquilt and, the tarp and all that. So but sleeping comfortably in the hammock to me it's way more comfortable for me than the tent.
Yeah, I love hammock sleeping, just cocooning in, or, the diagonal lay is really the technique to sleeping in a hammock. But I also found that with the underquilts, if you leave a little teeny bit of room between you and the quilt, you kind of allow that air underneath you to warm up a little bit. So I found that to help a little.
Yeah, and I'm a mess. Like, I try to do that diagonal stuff, but like I curl up in a little ball. Like I probably have like some primal ischial stomp where I've got to do my little fetal baby sleeping position. So it's good for the hammock. But anyway, but Lynn, can you talk about
No, don't move on. Tell us more.
Yeah, I don't know. I got issues. I curl up in a little ball when I sleep.
You just throw out these little tasty nuggets every now and then. You're like, oh, let's just move on.
What's that called? The fetal position? I sleep in the fetal position.
Listen, I have a trick for you there. So what I like to do is I use my trekking pole and I put the rock cap on it, the rubber cap. And I open it up, a third of the way or so, and I open the hammock up with it above my head. Does that make sense? So like right where the bug net meets the hammock, I open up the trekking pole just tight enough so that it's holding the hammock open a little, and then you can hang things from it. So you can, hang your headphones or, whatever you want, your socks if you need to hang it and you don't want to hang it on the guy line, then. Yeah, that's my trick.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Cool. That's a good idea. So we're going to have like a full show of hammock camping. I know that people that are into it are very into it.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
It's a big debate on the thru hikers between the hammock campers and the tent campers and the shelter rats.
Let's do a social media poll to find out.
Yes, exactly. And then the work with so we talked a little bit about the Alzheimer's Association, but can you talk a little bit about your role with the group and what they have coming up?
Absolutely. So my role within the group is I'm a volunteer on the committee that coordinates and steers 48 Peaks for the Longest Day through the Massachusetts and New Hampshire chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. And what that means is I just help out in the behind the scenes. We're doing social media posts. We're engaging with participants, helping with questions, doing things like arranging the hiker celebration, whatever might be needed to make an event, get off the ground. I work with about 7 or 8 other really fantastic women. It's all women on our team, as it were. And actually, we just recruited a new volunteer, and you might know who she is. Her name is Shandy.
Wow.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we've recruited her to volunteer with us a little, in her free time, which I don't know how she has any with all the things she does. But so beyond that, I really love what I do. Last year, we coordinated a lot with the hiking buddies. So, this year, we're just looking forward to having participants sign up and hike and enjoy their time and raise awareness and money towards Alzheimer's research and education.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah, the crew does an amazing job. So we'll definitely be talking more about that as it gets closer. And Stomp will have to open up our pocketbooks and do some donations as well.
Make a team.
Exactly. So, all right. So last question I have for you, Lynn, is sort of favorite tourist spots in like Lincoln, North Conway, other areas in New Hampshire. Anything, any restaurants, any secret spots that you want to share with the listeners?
Definitely. Whenever I'm in Lincoln, or pretty much anytime I need a place to stay, you will find me at the Notch Hostel. So absolutely recommend going there if you need some lodging for the night or the week. They're fantastic. There is a little place. It's next to Bergen Outdoor, which I should have mentioned in my gear list, that most of my layers involve some kind of Bergen Outdoor something. So, but right near Bergen is a cafe I think it's called the Moon Bakery, and they make the most incredible sandwich. I tried it for the first time last time I was there, and if I remember, it was like sliced turkey with like a blueberry compote, green apples, a couple other things I can't recall, arugula maybe, but it was just out of this world. So if you want a really cool sandwich, and I think they have things like gluten-free options, and I think they're pretty inclusive of dietary needs as well.
Okay. Awesome. We'll check it out. I'll pull the website on the show notes for people to check it out too. I posted a video on our Facebook page, and we can put it in the show notes. But White Mountain TV had gotten a chance to interview Sergeant Lopushansky, who is one of the COs for Fish and Game. He's been involved in a couple of these recent Franconia Ridge rescues, and matter of fact, his wife went viral with a photo of him leaving to go out on a rescue mission on Christmas Eve at about 9:30 at night. Right. So Sergeant Lopushansky was on White Mountain TV being interviewed, and gave his perspective on a number of things related to safety, and sort of gave his breakdown on possibly, why we're seeing an increase in some of these fatalities up on the ridge. So I thought it'd be good to break down a little bit about what he talked about and just get your perspective.
Great.
Okay, so a couple things that come out, and we've talked about this, is Franconia Ridge is very accessible, but it's a long exposed ridge, and he talks a little bit about sort of the social media impact, and that it's a badge of pride to hike there, that it's great to get summit photos, but like those photos and those images on social media really don't give a full picture of the risk involved and the scope of going on the ridge. And I think that's true, because I think everybody that goes on the ridge the first time, and you look across from, whether it's from Little Haystack or from Lafayette, and you look across at the distance you need to travel, it's a significant distance that you need to go where you're fully exposed above tree line. And I don't think that necessarily people connect that when they see pictures. So that was sort of his perspective on why it's such a common area for people to get in trouble.
Oh, even from the highway, it looks like, it's right there. Piece of cake.
Yeah, exactly. Then he did get into this recent rescue that happened on Christmas Eve. He talked about how the phone went dead, that the relative in China was monitoring him. He said that Lieutenant Nealon got a call at 9:15. Lieutenant Nealon then activated Lopushansky and another CO to head out. So that's when he left on Christmas Eve to get out to Franconia Ridge. He had his gear and everything. His wife took a photo, posted it on Facebook, and then it went viral, talking about how, this is sort of part of the job and the risk that goes into it. And, he's giving up his Christmas Eve to go out and try to rescue somebody. So, they had made the decision based on the data that they had, or the information they had from the relative and the data that they had from the tracking that the relative had been doing. They decided to do a reverse hike where they went up falling waters based on the last known location, which makes sense. From Sergeant Lopushansky's view, he basically says, based on the information that they have, they'll come up with a plan. They don't make any assumptions. He says people are tough to predict. Sometimes they'll do exactly what you think they're going to do, and sometimes they'll do the exact opposite. So he's like, we come up with a plan and we stick to it, and we just don't make any assumptions. So it sounds to me like their plan was up falling waters, come across the ridge, look for signs, and that's basically what they did. Then he got into a little bit of a discussion around what is some good advice for not getting in trouble. He immediately sort of came through and said solo hiking is in the winter is the most risky activity that you can do. Mm-hmm. Right. He suggests hike with a partner. He did preface that by saying look, there's some people that have a lot of experience and they can do it and they know what they're doing. But for the most part, if you can hike with a partner or a group, it's much safer than doing it on your own. He said that, for them, they'll typically look at what the Mount Washington Observatory weather is, and that basically is going to mirror what's on the ridge for conditions. He said when he got up there, 0 degrees, the winds were pretty solid, but he said probably 35, 40 miles an hour. So he calls Franconia Ridge like basically Everest without the altitude. So it's that sort of risky.
It can be.
It can be. He talked about how there was 2 additional commanding officers or conservation officers that headed up Falling Waters and then cut across via some of the drainage and came up. So basically they had 4 people. They had one going up, two people going up to Little Haystack, and then they had 2 coming up the drainage.
Walker? Was it Walker Brook?
I'm assuming, yeah, from Falling Waters. Well, no, I don't know what the drainage is from Falling Waters. So,
okay.
He did talk about sort of sweat and layering and how when you go off trail, it's really a trap, and that a lot of times people will think like, I'm going to take the most direct route to get myself out of trouble. But when you're off trail, it can take an hour to go a mile, depending on the snow conditions. You can be stuck in post holes, spruce traps, all kinds of mess.
Yeah, for sure.
So you're better off trying to stick to the trail if you can. They did eventually locate the body through, they located tracks up above. They were able to locate the body, and the hiker died of hypothermia. And he talked about how it's a common behavior of hikers. They get off trail, they go down, and generally, they're typically found in these drainages. And again, he emphasized like solo hiking is just very dangerous, especially if you're not experienced. He said they haven't typically run into a lot of issues where people are getting in trouble because of their physical condition, but these last 2 incidents that they've dealt with are based on people being under-equipped for cold weather.
Yeah, I mean, drainages look like trails, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Easy to mistake.
Yeah, then he pivoted. He talked a little bit about Emily Sotelo, who was the search and rescue mission a couple of weeks before. He said, he didn't want to second guess anything, but he said that the issue there was that there was some snow squalls that came in around noon that were a complete whiteout. I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect that there were whiteouts coming through probably even earlier than that. No one knows really. But he said, seemed like she turned back. The area that she was in is just a big rocky mess. You can't make your way through it in a whiteout. He went on to talk about how it's critical to have a handheld GPS. He said, don't navigate with your phone. He called out not using GPS apps on your phone, that they just die. The battery's not reliable. He said handheld off a satellite, plus having a paper and a compass and a second person. So it's critical. He did confirm that the Christmas Eve incident, that there was some sort of a light source. This was interesting, Stomp. What he said was he wanted to test, when he was tracking the person down, he wanted to test whether or not the person had a light source. And the way that he did this is when they were out there, they would turn their lights off and then follow the trail in the dark that they're tracking, and then that would tell them whether or not it was obvious if the person themselves had a light. And he basically said, he's like, there's no way that this person could have found this trail and done this direction without having some kind of a light source.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I suppose it makes sense.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So, but he said, his pack doesn't leave the truck without a headlamp. He circled back around again to say, again, the solo hiking. He talked about how we live in an area that has some of the most amazing and experienced guide services, anywhere. And he said there's courses, there's guided hikes. We've got these amazing guides, and that we should be taking advantage of them. So, we've talked about the guide services around the area as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Or, just a basic first aid class, wilderness first aid understanding as an individual is very, very helpful.
Yep. Yeah. So he gave a shout out to the volunteer groups, talked about how we're blessed in New Hampshire to have, amazing volunteer groups. I think this incident in on Christmas Eve and to Christmas Day, they didn't really need to activate anybody because they had, one of the good or bad. I mean, it wasn't a great outcome, but the fact that they had the last known position that was pretty accurate obviously helped them out in the fact that they didn't have to activate a big search team for it.
Yeah, still a strange story.
Tough one.
Such a shame.
Very strange.
Tough.
Yeah, but he's just trying to get the word out. So I think my takeaways was, don't go solo hiking, especially if you're not experienced. He talked about a little bit about gear too, and he just said like the clothing and the gear that these folks had with them was not, it's critical that you need to have life-saving gear with you, and that that wasn't the case here. But it was an interesting interview. I think it's worthwhile for everybody to check it out. I'll include it in the show notes. And, huge shout out to him, his family, the sacrifice they make. His wife's social media post went viral, and it is like it's something else the fact that, these people are there to go out to save us if we get in trouble, and it doesn't matter if it's Christmas Eve or if it's a random Tuesday or whatever. There's people like, from Fish and Game and from the volunteer services that will go out and help.
What do you two think about the contrast between the attention that Emily got and the attention this one got?
I think that anytime you have a prolonged search that goes over multiple days, the tension and the stakes get significantly larger. Like I think back to that search that was the guy that got lost on the Pemi, and how all eyes were on that. Sure. I think once you hit, and also the Musalaki, once you hit day 3, everything peaks. So if you have that 3-day search, everything peaks, and that's why you get the media attention. Yeah. I think in Emily's case, I think it was even more heartbreaking just because the timing and the fact that it's not to say that the gentleman that died on the ridge was a young person as well, but a very young person like Emily with her whole life ahead of her. I know for me, same age as my daughter, could have been my daughter. I think that it just resonates with people, and it really is, a heartbreaking tragedy. But I think at the end of the day, the difference between these two is simply the scale of the search, the fact that there was volunteer teams out there, and that the timing and the amount of time it took to actually locate her.
Yeah, not to mention they found her on her birthday, and yeah. I also have my son's going to be 18 next month, so it just resonates really hard with anybody in this community. It was a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I see your point. It's like, these do happen, and it seems like they get uneven levels of sort of media attention and response from the hiking community. But I do think, like, if you compare Emily's situation to the incident that happened on Musalaki and the incident that happened on the Pemi, I think that they got similar amounts of sort of media attention and reaction from people. It 100% has to do with the length of the time that it takes for the search teams to find the person.
Yeah, it is interesting though, the individual's context, like the Musalak search with the young student there. That was Mother's Day weekend. He was graduating, so there are all those different external factors that people add into the story to make it become so much bigger and just more gripping. And it's a very interesting point. Chris Staff was interesting.
Yep.
What was it about Chris Staff? I mean, that was a 5 to 6 day search. He was an older gentleman, but beyond that, was there anything else that stood out in terms of the social dynamic or any particular things? I can't quite recall.
I mean, I have to go back in time. I think it's just like rife for people to speculate and say like, okay, let's think this through. I want to be an armchair detective. Have they looked everywhere?
Yeah.
I think it's just these searches, and that's the thing that I wonder what Fish and Game should think about. Like, okay, is there a different media strategy, or is there a different approach that we need to take around, letting people know that searches are going on? Like, do we hold off on announcing that a search is happening for a little while longer if we think that this is going to take some time? That way, you're not dealing with a bunch of like weird activity on social media or the regular news media, because I do think there was some stuff in the Emily Sotolo situation where the media gave correct information, but they could have given more details, or it wasn't helpful. There's a lot of speculation about like, did she or didn't she have something on when she got dropped off as far as a headlamp goes, and there was all this speculation. I think none of that stuff helps.
No.
The early news reports, I think, just spin things up.
Yep, and people on social media just grab onto those little details and absolutely blow them up. You have people out in the field looking for things that you may or may not have even had. Yeah. It just gets a little weird. I think time is the enemy when it comes to search and rescue, and that's the answer. All right, Stomp. So a couple of other search and rescue cases here in the news. There was, in Tennessee, there was a rescue for 2 Appalachian Trail hikers that were stranded in a remote area of Johnson City on New Year's Eve. They were, there was a crew with an assault helicopter battalion in Knoxville was dispatched to the Sampson Mountain Wilderness area on New Year's Eve, and I guess the hikers were stranded in the darkness of night and surrounded by cliffs and drop-offs. So they got a call from help, and I guess this helicopter ended up heading out around 8 a.m. Hikers were located at 8:45 and lifted into the aircraft at 9 a.m. So they were transported to Johnson Medical Center where they recovered from minor injuries. So I don't really know that area. Lynn, have you hiked in that particular area on the Smokies, it looks like?
I have not been in the Smoky Mountains. No, I don't. I have not.
Okay. So anyway, these 2 Appalachian trails. Other than just a heads up for both of you, if and the listeners too, there are people starting the Appalachian Trail right now. Some people that were like, oh, we're going to start on January 1st or whatever. 101% of these folks are probably not going to make it, but maybe you'll get lucky with one. I already saw one guy that was like, he did 3 miles on the approach trail and tapped out.
That's an early start.
A lot of dreams right now that are going to get crushed.
Wow. The only other person I've seen do a start like that was Scott Beneroff.
I was just going to mention that, Lynn, because I saw your pictures. Yeah. How was he in person? Nice kid?
Oh, man. You know what? Meeting everybody there, meeting Phil, meeting Scott, it was just incredible to, hear their stories, get a little
awesome.
Intimate and personal with them, and just, you see them and you kind of see the big things they're doing, but they're also just really great humans. So.
Awesome. Well, Scott's another level, but I think he's one in a million. But I do think a lot of the through hikers that plan on starting in like January are just they're not making the greatest decision. But we'll see. Maybe some of them will prove me wrong. If you're listening, let me know. This next one here. So flashing phone light leads rescuers to a hiker story. Lost after dark.
Yeah.
Hawaii officials say. What's that?
Interesting story.
Yeah, it is. So, and it is interesting. A couple of notes. First of all, my daughter Caroline is in Hawaii for 8 weeks for school, so she's been sending me pictures as we've been talking. She did a 6 mile hike today, so she's seeing awesome views. She's like working in some like botanical garden place.
Wow!
I don't know if you can see, but yeah, like the mountains are just amazing.
There's a lot of activity in Hawaii. Like for search and rescue, it's amazing.
But yeah, hopefully she won't make the news. But a hiker, and I'm going to have her on the show. I've given her an assignment to do every hike that she can on the island, and then she's going to come on and do a show on hiking in Hawaii.
I want to hear about the Kona Trail.
The Kona, what island is that on?
I think it's the Big Island, or
the big one. Yeah, she's in Honolulu, so I don't know what island that is. So, yeah. But anyway, in this case, a hiker became lost after dark. She used a flashlight light from his cell phone to lead rescuers to his location. The 43-year-old hiker had been hiking for 8 hours, became lost after nightfall. On January 2nd, he called 911 after 7 p.m. According to the fire department, his cell phone battery had 40% life left, and it was imperative that he conserve the energy from it so his cell phone light could be used to find him during an aerial search. So rescuers located him just after 8 o'clock with geolocation from his phone and him assisting by flashing his cell phone light.
Isn't that cool?
So the man had no injuries and was taken to a nearby landing zone. So he got a helicopter ride too.
So there's your cool little tip. If you do have cell phone battery left, you can use your light as a little beacon.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think our plan is we're going to go out to Hawaii this summer as a family, go back. So she's doing her school thing right now, kind of learning all about the island, and then we're going to go back and she'll be our tour guide, and we'll do some crazy things. So yeah, should be good. This next one is a social media influencer / hiker out in California. She ended up dying on a slide from Baldy Mountain. So I got a couple of so Martin reached out to me to give me a little bit of background on this, and then our friend Al also reached out to give a little bit of background on this location. But this was a California mother of 4, and I saw some of her videos, and she looks like so full of life and such a happy person. It's such a tragedy. But her name is Crystal Paula Gonzalez Landos, and she's 56 years old. She was hiking on the icy Baldy Bowl on Mount Baldy when she slid an estimated 500 to 700 feet. And it's brutal. And she did a video of, apparently the way Martin explained it to me is there's a couple of different treacherous sections. It's sort of like Tuckerman Ravine for us, is there's a couple of sort of no-fall zones that you don't want to mess around in. And she was dealing with a lot of snow. The video that she took right before she fell was another section that was sketchy. Snow was kind of running down on her. It looked like she had micro spikes on, but not crampons. It sounded like she was posting an axe into the ground as she was going by. But apparently she went down this steep and icy hillside surrounded by a bunch of other hikers that were around. They all went to assist, but it was just loose snow. I don't know if she was buried in sort of a landslide as she went down, or a snow slide when she went down, but they were able to sort of respond with a rescue helicopter to hoist her out. But unfortunately, she succumbed to her injuries before she could get to the hospital. So I'll post the article in also the video so that people can kind of see the conditions. But she even called out how sketchy it was. And she just, I don't know if she was taking a video when she slipped or if she just dumb luck or whatever, but she was pretty experienced and been out there, she knew the risk out there, but unfortunately it just didn't go her way.
I'm reading the public commentary underneath the story, and the predominant theme is selfie takes another life, essentially.
Yeah, which is... It's dangerous for sure.
Part of the story, unfortunately.
You got to be careful when you're videoing, and I don't know if that's what happened here, but there was definitely a lot of chatter in the different local hiking groups around that.
Yeah.
Sad.
So very sad. And then there was another article that we pulled here: hiker lost in British Columbia. And this person was, I think Al had sent this to us, so thanks, Al, if you're listening. 6 p.m. on January 8th, the Kelowna Royal Canadian Mounted Police received an SOS call from a snow biker that had ridden into a ravine and become stuck after damaging their snow bike. So they called on the local search and rescue team to extract the snow biker. It turned out that the call actually involved 3 people that had gotten caught in this ravine. They had 10 members and 3 snowmobile club members go out with searchers. They had the coordinates of the first SOS call. When they got out there, the search was complicated because the subjects were actually moving further into the ravine trying to find a way out, but they kept getting into more and more difficult terrain. So the search and rescue team's like, when you send a distress signal with your coordinates, you got to stay where those coordinates are.
Right.
So due to the deep snow and location, it took them a bunch of extra hours to search and find these people. So basically they were like running away from their search team.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting. And then one more here. So lost woman found in Salisbury. Is this Salisbury, New Hampshire? Is that a town? I don't even know.
Salisbury, southeast part of the state.
Is it? Okay. We have Salisbury, Mass. I didn't know Salisbury, New Hampshire. But anyway, 54-year-old woman was dropped off along Warner Road by her husband in a wooded area. She wanted to find some pine branches and wood pieces to use for home decoration. The husband had planned to stay in the car and wait. She didn't come back at dusk, so he went looking for her. Unfortunately, he was unable to locate her, so he called for assistance. Conservation officers were able to follow her tracks until they located her about a mile from where she started. She was cold but uninjured. She was appreciative but didn't know how to get back to the road and didn't have any light source. So she's brought back to Warner Road around 6:30. The husband was probably thanking his lucky stars, because if she didn't show up, they were all going to be blaming him in that scenario. So
No light source.
yeah, exactly. And then last but not least, there's a proposal put out by Fish and Game, I think, for a law where it would give Fish and Game the power to revoke a driver's license in order to collect hiking rescue debt. So if you got in trouble and you got fined and you didn't pay that fine, then Fish and Game would be able to confiscate your license, so you wouldn't be able to renew your license until you paid it off. So Colonel Kevin Jordan, who heads Fish and Game, I guess he was involved in this. He said that the current language is vague and not enforceable, so they wanted to put in new legislation. And they said currently Fish and Game is seeking payments of about $80,000 in 20 cases that date back more than 2 years. So interesting.
Wow.
ACLU's in on it, and they opposed the bill.
Yep. Yeah, they oppose it. They said there's no evidence that pursuing the debt this way will lead to more prompt payment, taking someone's right to drive. So the ACLU is always going to come down on the side of, like, you take away someone's license, you're not going to be able to make a living, and they don't like those sort of like perpetual debt punishments. So, but the Senate panel did vote 4-0 to recommend passage of the bill. So we'll have to see what happens. Yeah. It says this is kind of a last resort option for them, but I mean the numbers are so small on this. I don't know. I mean, if they're not going to pay the fine, like I got a feeling you're going to take their license. You're just going to drive around without a license. Then they're going to go to jail when they get arrested. So it's just a perpetual, like, who knows?
Yeah. Interesting. Almost seems like a merging of state police powers and Fish and Game.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I got it. I mean, they're basically treating it like an unpaid speeding ticket. Like if you don't pay your speeding ticket, you're going to have the same issue.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's no different, I guess. So if you look at it that way, then yeah, it makes sense.
And they're more than fair. I mean, they do have payment plans and everything else. I mean, there's no reason.
Yeah, I was surprised they had 20 cases, but who knows? Maybe there's stuff we don't hear about.
20 billables.
Yes.
Right. That was this year, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So last thing, I just want to remind everyone, it's the beginning of the year. Get your Hike Safe card. Help fund Fish and Game and cover yourself just in case you do end up in the newspaper. They can at least say you got your Hike Safe card. George Pelletier on the Facebook group won't make fun of you. So,
oh my gosh,
it's worth it.
So you guys, I brought with me a hiking related tick joke.
We're gonna, so
Let's go.
I was almost done with the show, and then she brings up a tick joke.
Oh.
Okay.
You're just warming my heart, Lynn.
I mean, there's no possible way that this will be good, but continue.
Okay, all right. Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yep.
How do ticks get around?
How?
They hitchhike.
Dump. Welcome to the Tick
Okay.
Club, Lynn. That's awesome.
Okay.
That was totally unplanned, by the way.
Lynn, you were never invited back.
Who says I want to come back?
All right. Oh, touche.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lynn. It was awesome. Of course, you're invited back. And we're at 2 hours here, so we're going to call it a day, and we'll see you next week. Listeners, one other thing is if you have any questions, we'll post this on the Instagram page, but you got any questions for Ty Gagne when he comes in next week, send him our way. We'll ask him whatever you want to find out. So looking forward to that.
Awesome. Till next time.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about the topics covered in today's show, please check out the show notes and safety information at SLASRpodcast.com. That's SLASR podcast.com. You can also follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next week for another great show. Until then, on behalf of Mike and Stomp, get out there and crush some mega peaks.
Now covered in scratches, blisters, and bug bites, Chris Staff wanted to complete his most challenging day hike ever.
Fish and Game officers say the hiker from Florida activated an emergency beacon yesterday morning. He was hiking along the Appalachian Trail when the weather started to get worse. Officials say the snow was piled up to 3 feet in some spots, and there was a wind chill of -1 degree.
And there's 3 words to describe this race. Do we all know what they are?
Lieutenant James Nealon, New Hampshire Fish and Game. Lieutenant, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
What are some of the most common mistakes you see people make when they're heading out on the trails to hike here in New Hampshire?
It seems to me the most common is being unprepared, and I think if they just simply visited hikesafe.com and got a list of the 10 essential items and had those in their packs, they probably would have no need to ever call us at all.